Well, it's that time of year again. The holidays have arrived here at the Walt Disney World Resort. Peak season is right around the corner, and that means we need to have a conversation about how to survive the holidays here at the Walt Disney World Resorts, or honestly, in any major vacation destination. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Disney's Animal Kingdom, where today we're gonna be doing a little bit of wandering around, hopefully dodging the rain. Because I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, but it's looking a little questionable out there. And of course, we have no rain gear. None, because I'm just not prepared. That's all right though. It might guarantee that we get wet, but you'll be here with me, so we'll be hanging out. You'll probably be dry, so that's good for you. Anyway, so today I wanted to have a conversation about visiting the theme parks during the holiday season and some of the things that I think you need to do in order to make the most of it and honestly just reduce stress and get you where you want to go. And look, this isn't going to be like a 36-step plan that's going to tell you to buy a product or book with someone specific. I know I say these things all the time, but so often I feel like in this world of social media and people doing this type of thing that we're doing right now, tips and tricks and things you need to do, they often get overcomplicated. And that doesn't help, right? Like that just adds to the stress as opposed to reducing it. So we're gonna have a little bit of a different approach today. I wanna share with you some of the things that I think are important for you to know, some things I think are important for you to wrap your head around if you're going to be visiting this holiday season or if you're thinking about planning a holiday trip in the future. Because yeah, I know some of you already have your trips booked, you're trying to figure out how exactly you're gonna do that, but I know there are a lot of you who might be thinking about booking trips and all of this is gonna be relevant to you as well. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna wander around the park. I want to make a few stops. There's at least one thing that I want to try and get my hands on today, but we're keeping our eye out for a few other things as well. And while we do that, we're going to chat about 3 things. Yeah, I told you it was going to be basic. They're all pretty basic. They're all pretty straightforward. Some might be hard to hear, just the way it is, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, I think that if you take the time to at least consider these 3 things, you're going to be off on the right foot to having the vacation that you want as opposed to the vacation that you're dreading. So what do you say? Want to go start our trek around the park and get into this? All right, let's go. So like I said, there are 3 things that we're going to talk about today. 3 pretty basic things. And the first is going to be centered around accepting the realities. Yeah, a bit of a reality check when it comes to visiting the Walt Disney World Resort, or again, any major vacation destination during peak season. Now, for those of you who might hear me say peak season, you're like, what are you talking about? Peak season is a term that refers to busy season, the time when most people choose to travel for one reason or another. This could be things like spring break, also the holidays. Of course, the flip side of that coin is off season. Less people are traveling for one reason or another. Maybe kids are just going back to school. Maybe, it's not a major holiday, so people don't usually get time off work. But these are well-established seasons. You can find information about this online. Chances are you're probably familiar with the fact that sometimes are just better times to travel for one reason or another. More likely than not, that can be boiled down to peak season versus off season. Anyway, since it is peak season, holiday season that is, there are some, like I said, realities that we need to accept. The first is that it's going to be crowded. The second is that it's going to be expensive. Now, this right here, the fact that traveling to Disney during peak season is going to be both crowded and expensive is one of those things that people just really struggle to wrap their head around. And I think that that's because, people want the best case scenario. And for so many people, I think traveling during a peak season is their only option. I totally understand that because that was me for a number of years. And so through the power of, wishful thinking and maybe rose-colored glasses, there's this thought process that it's going to be ideal despite the fact that the conditions aren't ideal. And so that's actually why we're starting this conversation here today. Because until we fully understand the idea of, Disney's going to be crowded and it's going to be expensive, we can't go into this with the best foot forward. You know what I mean? Like, we can't go into this being like, okay, let's make this work if we're not even understanding the conditions that we're dealing with. And those conditions are it's crowded, it's expensive. Now, I want to talk a little bit about both of these things individually. First, let's talk about the crowds. And we're always talking about how to navigate crowds here at Walt Disney World, things that you can do, especially for free, to try and have a better experience with less wait times, less people you're bumping elbows with, you know? And of course, we'll continue to have those conversations, right? It's part of what we do here on the channel, so you can count on that, especially here in the coming weeks and months. But if you happen to have joined us for conversations about saving money, avoiding crowds, all of that stuff in the past, it's the same information no matter what time of year we're talking about. If you've missed any of our discussions up until now though, don't worry, we'll surely cover it again because we don't want you to miss out on anything. But the long and short of the discussion regarding crowds is that one way or another, if you're going to be visiting during the holiday season, it's going to be crowded. You're not going to have the park to yourself. You're not going to have low wait times. You might stumble upon low wait times. You might happen to have moments where it feels like you have the whole park to yourself, but that's outside the norm. So we need to understand that going in, at least about the crowds. But now let's talk about the price. Now look, conversations about money are always difficult conversations to have, which makes sense, right? Because things are expensive, especially visiting a place like Walt Disney World, but also everyone has a different definition of what is affordable and what isn't. Either way though, it's important that we recognize that, especially during peak season, not only at Walt Disney World, but everywhere, prices are gonna go up. And chances are you've probably experienced this even in your hometown. You know how the holidays roll around and the price of gas skyrockets? Supply and demand. You know, sometimes they call it dynamic pricing. Whatever you choose to call it, it's pretty predictable, and it's something that we do see across the industry. Now, you don't have to like it. I don't like it, but it's also important to recognize that this is the way that it's done, acceptable or not. So if we do decide to travel during the holiday season, if we have planned our trip during the holiday season, we should know this and keep it in mind going in. This is not budget season. This is not the time of year when you can expect to come here with the goal of experiencing something at its most affordable. That's just an unreasonable expectation. I think it's fair to say that, right? Now, even so, I do think it's worth noting that there are ways to save money. There are ways to cut down on your spending and stick to your budget. We talk about this stuff all the time too. Things like packing your own snacks, packing your own drinks. Bringing a few things with you can save you a ton of money and help you stick to that budget, even if you have to spend a little bit more on things like tickets, hotels, car rentals, whatever the case may be. So understanding that and wrapping your head around that before you get here, or better yet, before you book your trip, is really important. It's really important, especially when your aim is to have a good time. You know, if you walk into this, you're going to be traveling during the holiday season and you're like expecting it to be something that it never had a chance of being to begin with, you're already off to a bad start. And that bad start, that bad mindset is going to honestly stain the rest of your vacation. And I know some of you are like, really? Is it really going to stain the rest of my vacation? Absolutely. I honestly see it every single time I'm at the parks. Families who are just upset about things that they knew going in, things that are already in the past, like the price of the ticket. Choosing to have that be the thing that you focus on is choosing to not have a good vacation. And that's a hill I'm willing to die on. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I want to share two things with you that I think are super duper easy for you to do outside of just having the right mindset going in, okay? And the first, it's pretty simple. Like I said, all of this is pretty simple. The first is to consider what your must-dos are and focus there. Now, I know some of you have heard me say this before. This is not news, or at least it shouldn't be news to those of you who hang out with us often. If you're going to be visiting during busy times of the year, like the holidays, it's really important to have a focus. Like I said, with peak season come crowds. And because it's crowded, there are things you might not be able to do when you're here at Walt Disney World. It's just the reality of the situation. Honestly, that's the reality no matter when you visit. Sometimes attractions go down, sometimes wait times are just too long, and for whatever reason, you're not able to get on that attraction. For one reason or another, sorry, bug in my eye, you might not be able to do everything here at Walt Disney World, and that's okay. I know that there's not a lot of people who say that, but the fact of the matter is, It's true. And that's why I always say you need to focus on what it is that you and your traveling party really want to do. Make a list of 1 to 2 things per person, per park that you really want to accomplish. And that could be anything. That could be eating a hot dog from Casey's Corner to riding Triceratops Spin. Take some time to figure out what's most important to the people that you're traveling with and then focus your energy there. Saving the other stuff, you know, that can be an added bonus. But the whole goal of having a Disney vacation is to enjoy that Disney vacation in a way that you are going to enjoy it. Not in a way that someone on social media says you should. And I mean, that's something you guys hear us talk about all the time as well. Don't let other people drive your vacations. Don't let them tell you what a must-do is, because you can waste a lot of time and money trying to chase someone else's best trip ever. But if that's not what you want, it's not the best trip ever, is it? I will also tell you from firsthand experience, as well as from talking to so many of you over the years, that accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish rather than trying to do everything or the things that other people say you need to do will have you walking away from your vacation feeling so much more fulfilled. And when you end up doing something extra, which will happen because you will be able to accomplish more than 1 to 2 things per family member, you'll end up leaving your vacation with this list of extra things that you did on top of what you were really looking forward to, as opposed to leaving with this list of things that you couldn't get to. And it's a shift in mindset, but one that I think is really worth taking the time to do. But there's one other thing. There is one other thing that I think that you need to take into consideration, something you need to think about before you make your way to Walt Disney World, certainly before you book your trip. And that is, why are you here? Why are you booking this trip? Why are you visiting Walt Disney World? What is your motivation to be here? See, for a lot of people, I think that the goal when visiting Walt Disney World is to spend time with their family, to make memories. But because they're not focusing their energy there, because they're not thinking about what exactly that means, things go off the rails really, really quickly. And this is always unfortunate because, you know, again, I see this in the parks all the time. Families get here, all of a sudden they get a little overwhelmed, probably because they didn't prioritize things like I mentioned, you know, like picking what their must-dos are and thinking about must-dos based on their family's wants and needs versus someone else's. And in an attempt to keep up, while also trying to save money, while also trying to get everything done, they lose sight of the fact that they're here with their family. The whole reason is to be here with your family, to make memories, to spend that time together. And they do, in fact, make memories, but they're not the memories that they want. They're the memories that will stick with them and their kids forever. That time that mom said, no, I don't want to go to the bathroom right now. You can wait until after the attraction, and then the kid soils themselves and now it's a screaming match. That's literally an experience that I had right down the way. Or the families who are so fixated on money that they don't stop thinking about it. They bring it up, let's say, throughout the entire 30-minute queue. That's something I've also experienced. Those are things that people will remember. Those are memories, but they're not good ones. And look, let me just take a second to be really clear, because I don't want to rub anyone the wrong way, though I know I probably have already. I don't say this because I'm trying to judge families or criticize them for any reason. That's not my goal here. But I am saying this because I think it's important for me to be real with you. And because sometimes the less than magical parts of Disney vacations don't get discussed, people aren't prepared for what to expect. And I think that that's exactly what happens in cases like these. And that's why I want to make sure that we're all understanding what it is to travel to Walt Disney World, especially during peak season, especially when it's high stress. And like I said, it's not impossible to do these things. I know I said it's pretty easy, it's pretty simple. I think it is, though. I'd be lying if I said it didn't take years of practice to get into this mindset, but you have to start somewhere, you know? So that's why I think we need to just get all this out there so you know how to set yourself up for success, which is what we want to help you do here. Now look, like I said, this isn't something that's just going to happen. You're not gonna snap your fingers and then bam, perfect mindset. It's gonna take some time, it's gonna take some practice. But what's important is that we take steps to try and change our mindset, to try and think about some of these things. But how do you do that? Well, Honestly, it's really about having open and honest communication with the people that you're going to be traveling with. Taking the time to talk about what their priorities might be. Taking the time to talk about what you might be expecting when you visit Disney World during these times of year. Again, things like the crowds and the costs. Setting those expectations up before your trip, like well in advance of your trip, if not before you even start planning, which would be the best case scenario, is going to help you understand how to move forward. And it's going to set some expectations for you when it comes to who your family is, which, you might already know, but if you're traveling to a place like Walt Disney World during the holidays for the first time, you might not necessarily know how your family dynamic is going to fit in this situation. So getting the conversation started can help you figure that out, and it can help them figure out what to expect from this place, ultimately helping the whole process go a little bit smoother than it would have if everyone was walking into this blind. And look, this doesn't need to be like an intervention style conversation, right? Like, we can have these conversations over coffee or over dinner. It also doesn't all have to happen at once, which might be a little overwhelming for some family members. It can be a little bit here, a little bit there. You know your family better than anyone else, so you're gonna be the best one to determine how to talk to who about what and when. But the main thing is just having the conversation. Once the conversation gets started, all of this will start to fall into place. And the more you have conversations like this, the more that you have experience traveling in situations like this, the easier all of this is going to become. And you know what? Maybe you'll realize it's not for you. That's okay. Traveling during peak season, traveling to certain places, that's not gonna be right for everybody. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I definitely think that there are some things that you can apply to your next vacation, again, whether it's at Walt Disney World or anywhere else, that can make your vacation a little bit better. But look, I wanna hear from you. What are some things that maybe you talk to your family about ahead of stressful vacations like visiting Walt Disney World during the holiday season? How do you have those conversations with your kids, parents, friends, and family who will be traveling with you during this particular holiday? Put all of your comments and suggestions and thoughts in a comment down below, because of course this is a conversation and sharing your experience helps others figure out how to navigate theirs. But all right, I think we've covered pretty much everything there is to cover. Like I said, understand that vacationing during peak season is what it is. It is crowded. It is more expensive than some other times of year. Take some time to think about your must-dos and talk to your family about what their must-dos are, even if those must-dos aren't the must-dos that other people say should be your must-dos. And finally, think about why you're here. What's the reason for your vacation? I really do think that taking these things into consideration will make a huge difference in your next Disney vacation. There go those Discovery Island drummers. Anyway, I think that's all for now. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Until then, bye.